Hello. That instantly recognisable signal for Radio 4 was the brainchild, in part at least, of the multifaceted Fritz Spiegl. It's terribly difficult to pigeonhole Fritz into any one category. So, how would he describe his profession?
I don't think I've got a profession. I've got any number of hobbies, which I seem to turn to fairly good account.
Fritz Spiegl was born in Austria on Mozart's birthday, and he came to England as a child in 1939. For 15 years, resident cartoonist of the Liverpool Philharmonic Orchestra, and, by the way, he also doubled on first flute, he's known as a broadcaster, journalist, satirist and musicologist, which could be an excuse to collect rare and unusual instruments and extraordinary ephemera of all kinds. In fact, you could call him a one-man music museum, though there is hardly anything mummified about his activities. His house in a beautiful Regency terrace in Liverpool contains anything and everything from 4-poster beds to Loo-phoniums, more of which are none, and, would you believe, a private printing press.
In the basement of my house I keep a small offset litho press, which was there originally in order to print my own concert programs, because I don't plan very far ahead. When we do concerts for people, they usually say, well, we need to have the program at least 3 months ahead because we have to have the programs printed. Then I say, oh, no, we'll bring the programs with us. And that means the night before the concert I can decide on what we perform and then print it the night before the concert. And that actually springs from an old, not so much an old love, but an old profession in a way, because for the first 4 or 5 years after leaving school I worked in graphics in an advertising agency, and I worked as a designer and did music in my spare time. In fact, I got the sack for practicing in the firm's time.
Now I'm in the room where Fritz has his printing press. I can see leaflets on Liverpool street songs and ballads and an everyday history of Liverpool. Concerts that he's given, like an April Fool's concert. Facsimiles of old Christmas cards and postcards that the Scouse Press has done. Leaflet on Liverpool shipping. Hundreds of coloured bits of paper of all shapes and sizes, stacked on shelves. What appears to be total disarray, but is actually obviously very orderly. Pots of paint, ink, and the press you can hear going on in the background. In fact, a one-man industry. Phew, having recovered from the deafening noise of the printing press, I asked Fritz about his vocal group, aptly called the Spieglers.
Yes, it's a vocal group and it's not my name. Somebody else named it for me. And it's a comedy group, rather like the old comedy harmonists that used to sing before the war, of extremely funny material, very funny words, and very funny high-powered arrangements. Rather like the King Singers, only smaller and with, if I dare say it, better lyrics.
In the old days, before the infant genius George Frederick Handel and his folks moved in next door, we used to be able to sleep, but now it's difficult, it's impossible to get a decent night's sleep here anymore. There's a scandal at the Handels. Handels are a lot of vandals. How are we to get our rest, living next door to this pest? Every night that little Handel creeps down with lighted candle. Then as we are trying to kip, little Georgie lets it rip with. Won't his dad place an embargo on this blasted midnight largo?
Handel, please, we want some bed. Pack it in or drop down dead.
Really this is getting very much ruddier than the cherry. Oh, how we wish there was a drought to cut that water music out. We will have this boy evicted, he is sure to be convicted, if we ring for the police and report this breach of peace. 999. Is that the police department?
Hurry please to this apartment. Bring some handcuffs that will lock. There's a genius run amok.
where he isn't caught red-handed. May he never be remanded. See if you can play as well on the bars within your cell, the bars within your cell. Now he's gone, he's gone, a delight, we could have a peaceful night. But that tune composed by Fred keeps on running through our head. It's
they don't know I've turned the tables. Now for this one, if you're able. Happy dreams when it gets dark. I've let my room to jazz Bach.
he's let his room to J.S. Bach.
Fritz, you have a reputation as a musical humorist. Can you tell us how that began?
Sheer frustration from sitting in the Liverpool Philharmonic Orchestra 40 hours a week, or whatever it was, 30 hours a week. And so we had to do something jokey, and a lot of things grew out of orchestral jokes, rehearsal jokes. And then we gave concerts in the Albert Hall in London, and in the Philharmonic Hall in Liverpool, and various places like that. For example, when the Mahler's Symphony of 1000 was first performed in the Royal Albert Hall, we booked the hall soon afterwards and did a symphony of 5,000, because we issued all the members of the audience with various toy instruments of one sort or another, and the whole place was pandemonium, but they each had a conductor, and it really worked.
In those concerts, he used many unusual musical instruments, some of which adorn the walls and floors of his house. When I looked around, I could see a rare Kirkman harpsichord, a chamber organ, and what looked like half a dozen black ducks. They're apparently called ocarinas, Italian for little geese. And then there was a red bagpipe with yellow tassels, which came from Galicia in Spain, some Baroque oboes, a walking stick flute, some 19th century batons, which Fritz describes as the silent instruments of the orchestra, and a double bass from the local junk shop. What else? What on earth's that?
This looks rather gruesome. That was used in the 1950s for a concert in the Albert Hall, and we call it either a Loo-phonium or a harpsichord, because it's made of...
No prizes as to what it is.
Well, the top half of a tuba married to the bottom half of a china lavatory bowl, and it makes a very beautiful noise.
Which we can hear. Just outside the room where the Loo-phonium is, there's this quite extraordinary clock, which at a first glimpse you would assume to be just a early, rather unusual grandfather clock painted in a sort of country style. In fact, it is a flute clock, isn't it?
It's a Viennese flute clock. It's got 4 dancing figures at the top, and then a miniature organ in the back, hidden somewhere, and it plays 8 tunes, 1 on each hour, unless you switch it off, because it drives you mad if it plays every hour, dating from the late 18th, early 19th century. And this one is a barrel organ dating from the same period. You play it with a Handel, and it has a rather larger organ in it.
Fritz, in this room, all the walls appear to be covered with cardboard boxes. How many are there?
Well over 1,000, going from floor to ceiling, lining the walls. And they're all sorted according to subject, partly according, some are string quartets, some are piano sonatas, some are flute sonatas, but the others are street music, animal music, music about advertising, political music, medical songs, songs about food. Here's some music about transport, about ships and the sea, patriotism, the army, So if they're all fairly carefully sorted, I'm not a methodical man, but if I need something, say for Start the Week, if Start the Week
Yes.
discusses something about the army, I've always got some music ready which is suitable to the subject being discussed. And of course there are lots and lots of, hundreds of boxes of musical curiosities which are feeding the present series of musical curios on Radio 4.
This is a bit like Pandora's box, but can I pick one out at random and see what it contains?
Where you walk, some donkeys walked before. Where you walk is lifted up a paw. Where you walk, he's been and done it on the floor. Trees where you sit will bear the scent of it. Where you tread, you're sure to go and tread in it. Yes, you're sure to tread in it. Yes, you're sure to tread in it. And where you sit, you'll very likely sit right in it.
Well, though of course that wasn't original, appropriately that box is marked Poodles. Fritz Spiegl, thank you very much indeed for letting us look around your home. But before I leave, could I just mention one more thing, which is your association with the Z-Cars theme?
What happened was that over 20 years ago, when the BBC were starting this series called, it was first supposed to be called Crime Patrol, and David Rose was up here filming the first episode in Liverpool, and we happened to be doing a concert of Scouse music. That was long before the Beatles were even a glint in Epstein's eye. And David Rose saw the posters and came and said, would you think of a tune for us? And Bridget Fry and I thought of Johnny Todd, and she composed a sort of introduction to it, and we used more or less the original Liverpool folk tune and put it back on the streets where it really belonged. But I certainly wouldn't take any credits for it as a composer, because it didn't have to be composed, it was there. But we did play about with it quite a lot, and at one time we actually made a setting of it in the form of a Bach Chorale prelude. If you listen carefully, you can hear the Z-Cars tune coming as the chorale theme.
Bum, 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 bum,
Dee